All right. Hello, everyone. We'll get started officially at 12, but just wanted to give folks a moment to settle in and join us. For anyone who needs Spanish, I did put the interpretation instructions in the chat box, so you can use that to access Spanish interpretation if you need that for today's session. All right, welcome everyone. I know we have a lot of information to cover today, so we will get started. Welcome to Spotlight on Mediation. My name is Kylie, and I will be your Zoom support for today. We have Ally Chemtob from the Mediation Center in Westchester, Rockland, Bronx, of Cluster Community Services here today to give us some information on mediation. A little bit about INCLUDEnyc. For more than 4 decades, we've been helping young people with disabilities, their families, and professionals. We offer a helpline, workshops, and a variety of resources all on our website, which I will be adding to the chat box in just a moment. Just a couple housekeeping notes. We are offering interpretation in Spanish today. So to access that, click interpretation in your Zoom webinar controls, and then the language you'd like to hear. And we are in webinar mode today, so you can enter the room and your sound and video will automatically be off. We do have the chat box and Q&A box enabled for any questions for today's session. Just a note, we might not be able to answer all the questions, but we will do our best to provide any information to follow up as needed. And we appreciate everyone's patience and understanding. So I will pass it over to Ally to get us started with all the information for today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being with me and with INCLUDEnyc today. I'm thrilled to be here. So, as Kylie said, I am a mediation coordinator, special education and early intervention mediation coordinator with Cluster Community Services. And we do have Anna, a Spanish interpreter, here with us today. So, if I am speaking slowly, it's just to give her the opportunity to interpret for our Spanish speakers that are with us today. So Cluster Community Services is part of the Westchester, Rockland, and now Bronx Mediation Center. So I am a mediation coordinator. So when parents are in some sort of dispute or disagreement with their child's school about their special education services, they can come to me. Cluster and the Mediation Center, we're not advocates. We're not a legal services organization. We're not here to represent you or the school district, but we are here to help resolve the conflict as it pertains to access to special education services, an IEP, 504, things like that. Mediation is a voluntary process whereby parties that are in dispute come together to talk through the conflict and see if we can't find tailor-made solutions. It's also a confidential process. So anything that is discussed at the mediation cannot be used at a subsequent hearing or trial. Everything that's discussed in the mediation stays in the mediation. If the parties do reach agreement, which is what we're going to be discussing in more detail later on in the presentation, our mediators type up the mediated agreement. They will screen share it so everybody can review to make sure that it fairly and accurately represents what was discussed in mediation. And then parties will sign it. Once there is a signed agreement, that is a legal enforceable document in court. Now, I'm going over this pretty quickly. We're going to get to the specifics of the mediation process and the agreement as we go on. This is just a quick overview. So you might be asking yourself, why would a parent need mediation? Mediation should be used when the issues cannot be resolved in a less formal way. Typically, mediation should be requested after the parent disagrees with a decision made by an IEP team. Okay. So, common forms of disagreement in the special education space are a need for more or different special education or related services, or a failure to provide mandated services. So, an example of that would be if your child's IEP said speech 2 times a week for 30 minutes and they haven't been receiving that service. Classroom or school placement would be another common type of disagreement. You may be familiar with District 75 school. That's a more restrictive learning environment. A parent may think that that might be a better learning environment for their child. They may disagree with the child's placement in a community school and may want a D75 placement. Another common type of disagreement would be compensatory services. So that's back services owed. For example, if your child was supposed to receive speech 3 times a week, 30 minutes per session, all of last school year, and they only received half of their services, you're still entitled to the other half of the services. And finally, another example would be the district's refusal to request evaluation or asking to submit a request for an evaluation at a different date or time. So the umbrella of special ed mediation is pretty big. There's very few circumstances related to your child's special education IEPs, 504s, services that would not qualify for special mediation services. Okay, so don't feel like if I didn't mention an issue you're having here, it doesn't mean that you can't ask for mediation services. Okay, it's always worth a phone call. You have nothing to lose by requesting mediation. Mediation cannot be used to deny or delay an impartial hearing request, nor any other right afforded under IDEA. If anything, mediation can be used in the interim to help accelerate addressing the issue. This, Jean likes to call the spotlight effect. There's always the possibility that by bringing the issue up and requesting the mediation, the issue is solved prior to a hearing now that we've put a spotlight on the issue. Okay. Oftentimes, if a parent has requested an impartial hearing, a school district may request a resolution meeting. Okay. A mediation can replace the resolution meeting because a resolution meeting will be more of the same, especially if the IEP meeting that happened before wasn't successful. Our mediators are experienced, they're highly trained, and most importantly, they're passionate about this work. I have a roster of mediators who have been doing this a very long time. They're very familiar with the ins and outs of the CSC world, all of the services and placements. And like I said, they're very passionate about this work. The mediators are there to help facilitate a productive conversation. So consider mediation instead of a resolution meeting with your school. Consider having that neutral there, one of our mediators, that can help move the conversation along, help spotlight the issues that are most important to you and your child, and work toward a tailor made solution that works best for you and your child. So, preparing for the mediation. Um, this is where Include NYC is an absolutely incredible resource. They can help parents organize and prepare. They do offer that service. Um, You will discuss what your wants and your needs are, gather the necessary paperwork that you think might be helpful, and just kind of know what to expect. I hope I'm not going too fast. The next topic I want to touch upon are real examples of barriers that parents face when requesting the mediation, things that make it harder for parents to participate, things that make it harder to address the issues affecting their child's education. And if you're asking questions or putting comments in the chat box, I'll get to them at the end of my presentation. So one barrier could be English as a second language. We have translation and interpretation services available. Um, 5 days in advance of the mediation, I must request the use of translation services. So if you are a parent that does require that, please let me know. If you do reach agreement in the mediation, but you need the agreement translated, that will take a week after the agreement is written out to have translated. So just logistic concern. Another barrier is not having the right people in the room for the meeting. It's very important. And it's very important that in my role as mediation coordinator during my intake process, when I'm talking to parents to ascertain what the issues are, I learn specifically what the wants and the needs of the parents are so I could make sure that the right district representative is part of the mediation. The goal is always to have decision makers in the room, people from the district that can determine, yes, we can accommodate that request. Yes, we can implement that behavior plan. Yes, we can offer those services. And yes, the district representative can sign the agreement at the end of the session. So, as I said, that's part of my intake process. When I talk to the parent and when I talk to the school district, I explain that should parties get to agreement, it is essential that someone is there that can authorize what's being agreed to. If the district needs time to step out of the room and to make a phone call, connect with a superintendent or a chair or a supervisor, we provide them that opportunity. Another barrier parents might face during mediation is a lack of literacy. Mediators are happy and willing to read an agreement out loud during the mediation. They will go through the mediated agreement with you line by line. Now, at the top of my presentation, I said a written signed agreement is a legal and enforceable document, but it is not written in legal language. The reason for that is because we want our parents and our district to easily understand and easily implement what is in the agreement. So if you do reach the agreement portion of the mediation, our mediators will read it out loud, line by line, to make sure everybody has an understanding of what's being agreed to before they sign. It's very straightforward with action items and dates so everybody can understand. It's important to note here that if a mediated agreement is making changes to an IEP, the written agreement then becomes part of the IEP. The IEP changes to reflect what was in the agreement. Our Community Dispute Resolution Center has all the tools to remove any barrier a parent might face. So if you're concerned about something pertaining to mediation or accessibility, and I didn't touch upon that here today, I'm happy to help offline. I'll give my phone number, my email, but I don't want any parent to feel like they're not able to participate. Mediation is for you. It's not for me. It's your process. Our center and our mediators are just here to help. They're here to help facilitate a productive conversation and to make sure that your child has all the tools that they need to succeed in school. So now we're going to talk a little bit in a little bit more detail about the process, making sure parents are prepared for the mediation. As I said before, it is important and helpful for me to understand what the wants and needs are. What does that look like for you? If you're asking for something, if you think your child is missing something, what does it look like? We use the mediation process to explore the dispute. The mediator fleshes out what's going on so we can focus on the specific issues to be mediated. Maybe it's an air clearing conversation. Maybe it's an opportunity for you and your child's school to get on the same page. What are the parent and the school district trying to accomplish? Maybe it's a deeper understanding of your child's goals and objectives as a student. So now we're going to get into results. Um, the results of a mediation could be a full agreement, a partial agreement, or no agreement at all. Um, as I said earlier, we schedule mediations are confidential and they're virtual. Okay. If a parent would feel more comfortable having an in person session, we will try to accommodate. I will admit that there are usually, it's very difficult to pin down school staff. And so having a virtual option makes it a little bit more accessible for everyone, especially working parents. We recommend that the first mediation session is at least 2 hours long. If you do not reach an agreement, but you're working toward one, we're happy to schedule another session. We're happy to give you that additional time. Like I said, we're offering tailor made solutions. So now I'm going to ask Kylie to screen share a sample mediated agreement because I think it might help answer some of the questions that we have. Okay. So, like I said, this is a written agreement. Once all parties sign, it becomes a legal and enforceable document. So we'll start at the beginning. We have on our header the date that the mediation occurred, the name of the student, And I just want everyone to know these parties are made up. So this is a sample agreement. The school district, the parents of the student that participated, the district representative, and the name of the mediator. Now, again, we have the district representative, that's the decision maker. That's the person that can say, yes, we can implement, yes, we can make these changes, yes, we can do this. And we're getting their signature, so it becomes an enforceable document. Below the header, you have participation consent was obtained prior to the mediation, meaning all parties are agreeing to participate. And then the second session, mediation rules were explained by the mediator and the mediation was conducted. So there are more details that the mediator will explain to the parties before the session starts, in addition to mediation being confidential and voluntary. Mediators are also mandated reporters. So if there are any allegations of child abuse, we are mandated to report those. Um, Recording is strictly prohibited. You are not allowed to record any of the mediation process. The mediator may take notes during the session. Those notes are destroyed immediately after. You're not allowed to take notes and take them out of the session. Okay, that would be a violation of the confidentiality aspect. But like I said, a written signed agreement that is obviously public. It becomes part of the IEP. So below that, you have parties have agreed to the following, and we're going to go paragraph by paragraph. Item number 1, occupational therapy. The district agrees to an occupational therapy evaluation to assess Jessica Woodward's sensory needs within the first month of the beginning of the 2025-2026 school year, and recommend Jessica Woodward's use of appropriate sensory equipment within the school district. Grace and Thomas Woodward, those are the parents, agreed to make themselves available to sign the evaluation approval form on or before September 6th, 2025. So let's unpack this line by line. First, you have the district agreeing to an OT evaluation. And we're including the language within the first month of the school year, the first month of September. So that is a very clear action item. The district is going to have to do that within the month of September. In addition, they're going to allow the student to use any appropriate occupational therapy equipment available to the school district. And now the parents are also required to make themselves available to sign the evaluation approval before September 6th, on or before September 6th. So we want the parents to have to do their action item, which is sign the approval, at the beginning of the month. So the school district has the entire rest of the month to get the evaluation done. When we write these mediation agreements, we try to include as much detail as possible. Like I said, it's a legal document, but it's written in a way that's easy to understand. So everyone who has a role to play knows exactly what that role is. They know exactly what they are responsible for, so there's no confusion. Oftentimes, parties need mediation because there is confusion, and mediation is a tool to clear that up and get everyone on the same page because that's what's in the best interest of the child. Item number 2 is speech reevaluation. All parties agree that Jessica Woodward will be reevaluated for speech services using tools different from the tools used on the Blue School District's first evaluation. Joe Smith agrees to send the parents today, following signing of this agreement by all parties, at Grace and Thomas Woodward's email address below, a link to a list of approved evaluation agencies from which the parents may select an agency to reevaluate Jessica Woodward for speech services. at the expense of the district. Grace and Thomas Woodward agreed to inform Joe Smith of the selected agency within seven business days of receiving the list of evaluation agencies. Joe Smith agrees to coordinate with the agency on use of different tools for the evaluation and to conduct the IEP meeting within 2 weeks after completion of the reevaluation. Okay, so there's a lot here. Let's go line by line again. It appears to me after reading that there must be some sort of a dispute related to the initial speech evaluation conducted by the school district. But they're agreeing to a second evaluation using different tools, different metrics. And that is in writing. The second piece is that the school district is going to communicate using email addresses listed below. That indicates to me that maybe there was miscommunication. Maybe the school district and the parents maybe the parents weren't receiving the information that they needed from the school district. So the mediation agreement is clearing that up. And that happens often. What is the best address to send mail to? What is the best email address? What is the best phone number? Again, we're using mediation to clear up any confusion, any disagreement. The more specifics we include in an agreement, the better. That way, everyone is on the same page. The parents are going to choose which evaluation agency they're going to use, but the school district is going to offer a pre-approved list. Once the parents receive the approved agencies, they will pick one and they will let school staff know within 7 days. So again, very specific action items so that everybody is on the same page. Since it seems like the metrics that the school district used during their evaluation are in dispute, the school staff, Joe Smith, is going to coordinate with the agency on different metrics. And then finally, at the completion of the evaluation, school staff agrees to conduct an IEP meeting within 2 weeks after the evaluation. So there's no excuse for why the reevaluations don't happen. There's no confusion as to when they're going to happen. Everybody understands. Parents are going to give their answer within 7 days. School staff is going to provide different tools for the evaluation. The IEP meeting is going to happen 2 weeks after the completion of the evaluation. Item number 3, neuropsychological evaluation. Okay, Joe Smith, school staff, authorizes an independent neuropsychological evaluation to be conducted at an enhanced rate not to exceed. Now, again, that's the number that the school district and the parents are going to agree to on the cost of the evaluation. Joe Smith will notify the pay memo office. So that's an office within Department of Education that is responsible for enhanced rate of pay, that they're going to expedite upon receipt of the valuation, and the provider's invoice shall be paid within 90 days. So they're agreeing to what the cost is going to be, that it's going to be paid, that school staff is going to notify the payment office. Okay, so the parents aren't coming out of pocket for anything. Again, everybody has an action item that they're responsible for. Kylie, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down. Thank you. And then finally, this paragraph is standard language in all our mediation agreements in compliance with federal law, IDEA 2004, and the New York State Department of Education regulations. Both parties acknowledge and accept that all discussion held during mediation process must remain confidential and may not be used as evidence in any subsequent due process hearing or civil proceeding. Okay. The written signed mediation agreement is enforceable in any state court of competent jurisdiction or in a district court in the United States. If any terms of this agreement affect the student's IEP, the Committee on Special Education must immediately meet to amend the student's IEP to be consistent with the terms of this agreement. And then you have the date that the the case was mediated, and then you have the signature line for everybody there. I just want to end with mediation is free. We're funded by the state education department. It does not come out of pocket for you. The school district does not come out of pocket. Um, Nothing happens unless you, the parent, agree. We're not here to force or convince you. This is your process. This is your opportunity to talk about what you think your child needs. Mediation is just a conversation, and our mediators are there to help you. So I think I covered everything that I wanted to, and now I will go into the Q&A. Let's see. If a family requests mediation, will their child automatically continue to receive the services on the existing IEP until a resolution is reached? Yes. Does the family need to request it? Pendency? No. So you can request mediation at any time. This is a great question. Services that the child is currently receiving will continue. If any of that changes during the mediation, like I said, whatever's agreed to in the agreement then is incorporated into the IEP. The CSC must meet immediately to incorporate the changes that were made in the mediated agreement. Okay, and let's see, I'm going to go back into the chat box as I see there's some questions there. Okay. The doctor has prescribed ABA therapy for him, but at school they don't offer it. Okay, so this is a perfect case for mediation. If your child is been prescribed, it's been evaluated, and they qualify for ABA services, if the school district does not have an ABA provider that can provide the services, your son is still entitled to the services. So you can request mediation, and the topic could be discussed. Is there an opportunity for a provider to come to school? And if not, the district can pay to have somebody come to your house if your child qualifies for the services. I don't want to speculate about what would happen in the mediation, but if your child is entitled to ABA, he must, the district is obligated to provide that. Okay, placement, please discuss. If a mediation, agreement includes changes to the IEP, how soon must those changes? Immediately. How soon must those changes be implemented, and how can a parent enforce the changes? So again, a mediated agreement is a legally enforceable document. So the CSE team must meet immediately. That's language we could put in the agreement. We can say that the CSE team will meet approximately 1 week after the execution of this agreement, or whatever time parties agree to talk about how they're going to incorporate the changes. If that gets incorporated into the IEP and they're still not doing what they said that they were going to do, you could request an impartial hearing and say that there's been a violation of the agreement. I'm just going to scroll through the chat. There's a few more questions. When you request mediation, is the district rep who is in the meeting the same district chair that held the meeting that you disagreed with? Maybe the district decides who the district representative is that's best suited to participate in the mediation. So sometimes it might be the district chair and other. It's allocated to someone above the district chair. Like I said, we really want the final decision maker. So if the district chair is someone that can't really say yes or no about something being implemented, My job is to make sure that whoever can is there, or that the district rep has the opportunity during the mediation to step out, check in with that person that can say yes, and we're going forward with things that we know can actually happen. And I hope I'm answering all of your questions. If not, and you have follow up, please put them in the chat box. If I already have a case, but I'm requesting a reevaluation and the school isn't responding, what's my next option? Um, I'm not entirely sure I understand. If you already have a case, meaning if you already have a date pending for a hearing, you can still request mediation. And the hope would be that we can resolve the matter through mediation prior to the court date. Like I said in my presentation, this would be like the spotlight effect. The goal is that we use mediation to resolve the issue so parties don't need to be in court. There is always the risk that the school doesn't respond. Like I said, mediation is a voluntary process. I don't have subpoena power. I can't force or compel anyone to participate. But I will tell you that the DOE has implemented an oath office unit. They are responsible for coordinating with me all of the mediation requests. And we do work together to accelerate mediation requests to make sure that the district is not refusing. And so far, I haven't had any cases where the district refused to participate. Sometimes I'm able to make a few phone calls and to facilitate the requests of the parents without mediation, but I've never had a district flat out ignore me, at least not recently. Does anyone have any other questions? May I have a representative speak on my behalf at the school to advocate for my child's needs? Yes, the answer is yes. If you have an advocate or you'd like an advocate to come with you, I can help. I could recommend there. I can send you. We are not advocates. I'm not an advocate. Our mediators are not advocates, but you are absolutely entitled to have legal representation or an advocate with you. If you don't want them in the mediation, but you want them on standby, that's fine too. The same way I said, if a district needs to step out and make a phone call, if you as a parent would like to step out, make a phone call to your attorney or to your advocate, if they can't be there in person or over Zoom, yes. And prior to the mediation, I will find out every name and title of district representatives participating and everyone participating on behalf of the child, parent, advocate, attorney. And so everybody gets everyone that's participated in the mediation gets a list of names. So there's no surprises. Um, you're not going to be sitting there across from a table of lawyers. You're going to know everyone that's there, who they are, why they're there, what are the issues that they're going to speak to. Mediation for me is really an opportunity to reestablish trust with your school district. Like I said, clear the air, get everybody on the same page talking about what the real issues are, and make sure that when you leave the mediation, you're able to move forward thoughtfully. Sorry for the background noise if you can hear that. Are there any other questions? What if a school district is not being reasonable and does not want to participate in the mediation? Um, like I said, I've very rarely and not recently seen a district flat out refuse. Um, I am working with the oath office, so if a district is refusing to sign an agreement or acting unreasonably, I can't force anyone. But I do have a good relationship with DOE staff, and I let them know if there are any problems. We're all trying to work together. New York State has thousands and thousands of cases pending impartial hearing. And we are trying our best to implement mediation practice wherever we can. It's highly effective. And I think, um, it's far less contentious and adversarial than the court processes. It's just an opportunity to have a conversation and make sure everybody's on the same page. I know I keep saying that, but it's the truth. You mentioned a 2-hour appointment for the mediation. Do DOE staff always stay as long as needed? And if not, can the mediation be continued? Yes, absolutely. So I really try to schedule the first session for 2 hours. I know that seems like a lot of time, but we really need it. In a perfect world, I would schedule them for 3, but I know that's difficult. Mediation is your process. So if you feel like at the end of 2 hours there was still more that needed to be discussed, we would schedule a second session or even a third session. If you're partially in agreement on something, we schedule a second session. If there's no agreement and there's more to talk about, we'll schedule a second session. We're very flexible. And again, this is free. So even if you need 2 or 3 sessions, there's no charge. My daughter still hasn't received all her services, and I'm thinking about requesting a transfer to another school. Will it be approved? I can't speak to whether your request to transfer her to another school would be approved, but if she's entitled to receive services and she's not receiving them, you should absolutely be requesting a mediation to discuss that. And one of the areas that can be discussed in mediation is a different placement. That's part of the umbrella of things that we could talk about in mediation. So again, I'm not trying to guarantee any results. I'm just trying to guarantee good process. So you're entitled to mediation, and our mediators are there to facilitate the conversation. I can't speak to what the district can or can't offer, but we're going to talk through it and see that your child gets the services that they are entitled to. I wanted to just follow up. How can I have a representative? The school hasn't responded. I need to be on the same page regarding my child's needs. I'm wondering if Include NYC may have some recommendations for advocacy services. If not, we can connect offline and I can recommend.
Yes, they can definitely feel free to call our helpline and I'll drop that information in the chat.
Another question. My son has always had a small bus for his health. Now they've changed the bus for a large one, and the IEP 12 says it has to be a small bus. What can I do? The school says it will no longer take the IEP into account. You should request mediation. If your son is entitled to a smaller bus and that's in his IEP, then that's something that we have to discuss in mediation because he's entitled to that. He requires it. I would say that mediation is often an opportunity to find middle ground. So again, I don't want to speak to a particular result. I just want to give an example. Um, Perhaps your son is entitled to a small bus, and the school district is saying, well, now he has to take a big bus. Maybe there's something common ground there. Maybe there's middle ground, and maybe we just need to talk through. And sometimes it's just a matter of the school district hearing the parent and understanding why it is that this child cannot be on such a large bus, and are there other options. Again, I don't want to promise results, but I do want to promise that you'll have effective communication with the help of a mediator, and hopefully all parties will understand what the issues are. Go back to the Q&A box. Okay. don't see any here. And I don't see any other questions in the webinar chat. Does anyone have any other questions? Happy to stay on. I'm also going to include in the chat box my email address. Again, my name is Ally Chemtob, and I'm the Special Education Mediation Coordinator. I think we may have another question. My son also had a doctor leave a person for the bus. The district denied it. I can't really speak to that, obviously. I don't know anything about that, but I think it speaks more to your concern as a mother about having your son who has special needs on a bus and making sure that someone is there looking out for him. My son has bus service and still does not receive that service. The school does not respond to me. Again, if your child is supposed to be receiving services and that is in their IEP or their 504 and they are not receiving those services, request a mediation. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to schedule an opportunity for you and your district representative to talk through and find out why your child is not receiving the services and what we can do to make sure that they are. Okay.
I also don't see any more questions. I am going to just pop up our final evaluation poll for folks while we're waiting just to see if any additional ones come through. So if you do have a moment to answer that, that would be great. Oh, and I see a question about adding the helpline information again. I will drop that right now. We do have it in English and Spanish, so I'll put both in the chat box.
Thank you. I thank you all for being here today. I hope that I was able to provide some information about how mediation and specifically mediated agreements work and what they could do. Knowledge is power. So knowing that we're here and this is a free service that we offer, feel free to call or email anytime. If you don't speak English, I do have use of language line. I will call you with an interpreter. And yes, I will share my information. 1 second.
But we do have one
One.
more question that just came in the
Oh,
Q&A that someone was wondering which mediation center do they use and how do they know?
okay. So my center services Westchester County, Rockland County, and Bronx County. If you are in Brooklyn or New York City, that would be New York Peace Institute. And I'm not sure about Queens or Staten Island, but I can find out. But if you are in Queens or Staten Island, you can reach out to me and I'll help you locate a center that can help. But again, Cluster, my center, helps with Westchester County, Rockland County, and Bronx County. And New York Peace Institute assists with New York City and Brooklyn cases. If you are a Bronx resident and your child is in a placement in any of the other counties, you could still contact me to help. So you may be a Bronx resident, but your child is being bused into Manhattan or into Brooklyn. You can still make your mediation request through me if you are a Bronx resident. That applies for Westchester too. So if you're a Bronx resident, but your child is getting bused to Westchester County, you can still make your mediation request through me. Oh, I'm gonna send that now. 1 second. I want to put my my email and my phone number. So that's my phone number, and here's my email.
Great, thank you so much. I think that is all the questions we have for today, but we appreciate so much you joining us, Ally, and all the information on mediation. You've been super helpful, and I know we had a lot of great questions from our families today, so we appreciate all your support and for you joining us this afternoon.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, Include NYC, for having me. You guys do a wonderful job, and you're such a resource to the community. And I look forward to partnering with you in future endeavors and helping connect parents with the services that they need.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you on another webinar soon, and have a great rest of your day.